Listen up, because what I'm about to show you isn't just a random list of guns, bombs, and blades. These are the 10 weapons that didn't just win battles, they rewrote the rules of war, terrified entire civilizations, and gave their owners advantages so unfair that enemies sometimes surrendered before the fighting even started. Some of these weapons were so effective that they were banned centuries later. Others were so secret that most people on the planet still don't know the full story. And one of them was so devastating that the man who invented it spent the rest of his life trying to make sure no one ever used it again. If you've ever wondered what it really takes to dominate a battlefield, to make armies drop their swords and run, or to end wars with a single demonstration, stay glued to your screen. Because by the end of this video, you'll understand why these 10 weapons were just tools of war, they were cheat codes for history. And the craziest part, almost every single one of them was considered impossible until someone actually built it. But before we begin, let me tell you something most history channels will never admit. The deadliest weapon isn't always the one that kills the most people. Sometimes it's the one that breaks the enemy's will to fight. Sometimes it's the one that makes entire nations realize resistance is pointless. And the 10 weapons you're about to discover did exactly that. Let's start at number 10. At number 10, we have Greek fire, the medieval flamethrower that burned on water and turned the Byzantine Empire into an untouchable superpower for 700 years. Picture this, it's the year 678 AD, and the most powerful empire on earth, the Arab Caliphate, has Constantinople surrounded by land and sea. They've got over 2,000 ships ready to burn the city to the ground. Everyone expects the Byzantine capital to fall within weeks. Then the Byzantines roll out something no one has ever seen before. From the prows of their ships, they start spraying a liquid that ignites on contact and keeps burning even when it hits the water. Arab ships burst into flames that can't be put out. Men jump overboard only to watch the fire chase them across the waves. Within hours, the greatest naval invasion in history is reduced to floating bonfires. The Arabs called it the fire that swims. The Byzantines guarded the formula like it was the word of God himself. We still don't know exactly what it was, probably a mix of pine resin, naphtha, quicklime, and sulfur pumped through bronze siphons. But what we do know is that it gave Constantinople an unfair advantage no enemy could counter. For centuries, whenever an enemy fleet showed up, the Byzantines just set the ocean on fire. Greek fire didn't just save an empire, it kept one alive long after it should have died. At number 9, we have the Hwangryong, the Korean turtle ship that made the Japanese Navy look like children playing with toys. Japan launches the largest invasion fleet in history up to that point, over 1,700 ships carrying 150,000 men to conquer Korea and then China. The Korean Navy has less than 100 ships and almost no hope. Then Admiral Yi Sun-sin unveils the Jeobuxian, the turtle ship, the world's first ironclad warship, 200 years before anyone else even thought of it. Imagine a floating fortress completely covered in iron plates, spiked with blades so enemies can't board. A dragon head at the front that breathes fire and sulfur smoke to blind the enemy. 16 cannon ports on each side, and a fully enclosed deck so archers and gunners are completely protected while they rain hell on wooden Japanese ships that have no armor at all. In the Battle of Myeongjae, Yi Sun-sin with just 13 turtle ships destroys or captures 31 Japanese warships without losing a single ship of his own. The Japanese admiral later wrote that fighting the turtle ships was like tacking in a movable castle. Japan's dream of conquering Asia died on the hulls of those iron monsters. One ship design turned an impossible defense into total domination. At number 8, the P-51 Mustang, the fighter plane that gave the Allies air supremacy and made the Luftwaffe irrelevant overnight. Early 1943. American bombers are getting torn apart over Germany. The B-17s can take the punishment, but without long-range escort fighters, German Bf-109s and F-190s pick them off like flies. Daylight bombing looks unsustainable. Then the P-51 Mustang enters service with one unfair advantage no one saw coming: the British Marlin engine married to an American airframe. Suddenly you have a plane that can fly from England to Berlin and back, and out-climb, out-turn, and out-dive anything the Germans have. The first time a group of P-51s shows up over Berlin, German pilots literally radio back that they're facing a new type of fighter we cannot compete with. In the first 6 months of 1944, the Mustang pilots shoot down nearly 3,000 German aircraft while losing fewer than 600 of their own. The kill ratio is almost 5-1, German ace Adolf Galland later said. The moment we saw the Mustangs over Berlin, we knew the war was lost. One engine swap turned a good fighter into the ultimate predator of the skies. At number 7, the Mongol Composite Bow, the weapon that let horseback archers conquer more land than anyone before or since. You've probably heard that the Mongols were unstoppable because they were ruthless. The truth is more terrifying. They had a bow that no other army could match. Made from layers of horn, wood, and sinew glued together with fish bladder glue, the Mongol Composite Bow was smaller than a longbow, but twice as powerful. From horseback, at a full gallop, a trained Mongol archer could loose 10 arrows in the time a European knight could fire one. And those arrows could punch through any armor of the 13th century at 200 yards. At the Battle of Mohi in 1241, 50,000 Hungarians in full plate armor line up against 30,000 Mongols. The Hungarians have heavier cavalry, better armor, and the home advantage. The Mongols ride circles around them, showering them with arrows until the Hungarian army literally drowns trying to escape across a river. The composite bow didn't just give the Mongols range, it gave them the ability to kill you before you even knew they were there. At number 6, the Maxim Gun, the world's first true machine gun that turned colonial wars into massacres. In the late 19th century, a few hundred Europeans with Maxim guns could conquer entire African kingdoms. That's not exaggeration, that's mathematics. The Maxim fires 11 bullets per second, that's 600 rounds a minute, with water cooling so it never overheats. One gun crew can put out more firepower than an entire battalion of riflemen. At the Battle of Omdurman in 1898, 50,000 Sudanese warriors charged 20,000 British and Egyptian troops. The British have 44 Maxim guns. In 5 hours, 12,000 Sudanese are killed. British losses 47. One British officer famously wrote, "It was not a battle. It was an execution." The Maxim gun didn't just give Europeans an advantage, it made resistance mathematically impossible. Entire empires fell because no amount of courage can beat a wall of lead traveling at 600 rounds per minute. At number 5, the Dreadnought Battleship, the ship that made every other navy on Earth obsolete the moment it launched. December 1906. The British launch HMS Dreadnought, bigger, faster, and more heavily armed than any battleship ever built. 10 12-inch guns that can fire 800-pound shells 15 miles. Turbine engines that make it faster than any existing battleship. And armor thick enough to shrug off anything that can catch it. The moment Dreadnought hits the water, every other battleship on the planet becomes floating scrap metal overnight. Germany, France, America, Japan, everyone has to start from zero. Britain goes from having the largest navy in the world to having the only navy that matters. One ship resets the global balance of power and triggers the most expensive naval arms race in history. The Dreadnought advantage was so overwhelming that the term, Dreadnought, became synonymous with unstoppable naval power. At number 4, the Roman Gladius and Scutum combination, the sword and shield that let a few thousand men conquer half the known world. Everyone thinks Rome conquered with legions and discipline. The real cheat code was simpler. The Gladius Hispaniensis, a short, double-edged stabbing sword paired with the Scutum, a massive curved shield that turns the Roman soldier into a walking wall. While barbarian tribes swing long swords that need space, Romans close the gap, lock shields, and stab upward into groins and armpits, where armor doesn't cover. The shield wall is unbreakable from the front, and the short sword means Romans can fight shoulder to shoulder without ever exposing themselves. At the Battle of Cynocephali, 20,000 Romans face 30,000 Macedonians with 18-foot sarissa pikes that should keep the Romans at bay forever. The Romans simply walk forward behind their shields, get inside the pike range where the sarissas become useless, and slaughter the Macedonians in hand-to-hand combat. The Gladius and Scutum didn't just give Rome an advantage, they made every other infantry tactic obsolete for 500 years. At number 3, the English longbow, the medieval weapon that ended the age of chivalry and made French knights look like tin cans with legs. 1346, Crécy. 10,000 English face 30,000 French. The French have the finest heavy cavalry in Europe, knights in full plate armor charging on war horses bred for battle. The English have 6,000 peasants with 6-foot yew bows. Each archer can loose 12 arrows a minute, arrows that punch through plate armor at 200 yards. 15 minutes. That's how long it takes for 30,000 French knights to become a carpet of dead horses and screaming men. The English lose a few hundred. The French lose thousands, including half their nobility. The longbow doesn't just kill knights, it kills the entire idea that money and armor can protect you from a determined commoner with a stick and string. At number 2, the atomic bomb, the weapon so terrifying that its inventor begged the world never to use it again. August 6, 1945, one plane bomb, one city destroyed in a flash brighter than the sun. Hiroshima wasn't just bombed, it was erased. 70,000 people dead in seconds. Another 70,000 dying from radiation over the following months. 3 days later, Nagasaki. The Japanese military still wants to fight to the last man. Then Emperor Hirohito speaks to his people for the first time in history and says the war must end because the enemy now possesses a bomb with the power to destroy the entire world. The atomic bomb didn't just end World War II, it ended the idea that any war between great powers could ever be won again. One weapon made total war obsolete. Robert Oppenheimer watched the first test and quoted the Bhagavad Gita, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." He spent the rest of his life trying to put the genie back in the bottle. He failed. And at number 1, the most powerful, most unfair, most terrifying weapon in human history is the one we're still too afraid to name properly: nuclear weapons delivered by intercontinental ballistic missiles. Because it's not the bomb itself anymore. It's the fact that today, 9 countries possess weapons that can reach any point on Earth in 30 minutes or less. Weapons that can turn entire nations into radioactive ash before their leaders even finish reading the warning. The United States, Russia, China, they don't just have bombs. They have thousands of warheads on submarines that can't be found, on missiles that can't be stopped, and on bombers that can loiter for days. This is mutually assured destruction, the ultimate hidden advantage. Because no one wins, which means no one dares to start. The Cold War never went hot, not because people were nice, but because both sides knew that 12 minutes after the first launch, human civilization would be a memory. We live in the longest period of great power peace in modern history, not because we solved war, but because we built a weapon so perfect at its job that using it means losing everything. The ICBM didn't just give one side an advantage. It made the entire concept of victory obsolete. So there you have it. 10 weapons that didn't just change history, they broke it. From fire that burns on water to missiles that end civilizations before breakfast. Every single one of them gave its owners a hidden advantage so overwhelming that enemies often gave up before the fight even began. The scariest part, someone, somewhere, is working on number 11 right now. If this video made you rethink what power really means, drop a comment with the weapon that shocked you the most. And if you want to see the stories behind the weapons that were too insane to make this list, hit that subscribe button. Because history isn't just written by the victors, it's written by the people crazy enough to build the tools that make victory inevitable. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.